Welcome to ICCG's Close-Up, sponsored by Round World Solutions, where Fortune 1000 CXOs share their enterprise strategies for competing and winning in the global economy. Our wide-ranging topics include big data, governance, supply chain analytics, enterprise mobility, and portfolio management. The goal of our interviews is to understand the CXO's area of focus, the challenges associated with that area, and their plans for confronting those challenges. The benefit to our participants is the creation of a virtual CXO knowledge pool, so CXOs can learn from each other and not have to reinvent the wheel. I'm your host, Ellis Booker. Welcome to ICCG's Close-Up, sponsored by Round World Solutions, where Fortune 1000 CXOs share their enterprise strategies for competing and winning in the global economy. I'm your host, Ellis Booker. Joining me from Round World to ask some questions today is Amy Hara, Vice President, Solutions and Delivery. Our guest today is Ashwin Rangan, Chief Innovation Officer and CIO at ICANN, which operates the Internet's Domain Name Service, or DNS, and coordinates allocation and assignment of the Internet Protocol addresses, among other functions, to keep the Internet secure, stable, and interoperable. Welcome, Ashwin.
Thank you, Ellis. Glad to be here.
Your title is Chief Innovation Officer. Can you please explain your role and how does it relate both to technology and business prerogatives at ICANN?
Certainly. It is the case that many businesses, many organizations rely deeply on technology to fulfill their charters. Increasingly, the impact of technology is being felt in all areas of the business. What used to be the traditional areas of technology applications are ever expanding, so that today it is the case that practically no part of the business can be isolated and insulated from the impact of technologies. When we think of innovation, it's not in the terms of coming up with a new product, but instead it's in terms of coming up with new services that benefit the communities that we serve. And we look at how technologies can be interlaced in making those services either more efficient or more. So in looking at technology in isolation, we could possibly come up with a title that reflects just that, and that would be a CIO. But in looking at technology as it is intertwined with the integral heart of the business, we think of innovation.
It's a very good explanation. I'm sure that a lot of companies would like to encourage innovation internally, but they're not sure how to go about it organizationally. Given that you have the title, what are some of your techniques for doing that?
I think the single most important criterion, in my opinion, is the ability to participate at a business table in a business discussion, understanding the business imperatives, not necessarily touting the capabilities of technology, but instead to understand how a business could be improved by having this knowledgeable basis of technology that we all do as IT officers. So it's not about exposing what we know about the technology, but instead being curious to understand what the need of the business is, and therefore bringing the knowledge of technology to bear on the business for the benefit of the business.
Ashwin, why do companies drop their ball in pursuit of new innovative ideas, processes, and products?
There's a variety of reasons that one could think of. With your permission, I'll hypothesize here, because I think you're asking me for an opinion as opposed to a fact. So let me just go out on a limb here. I do believe that it starts with leadership, both within the business and within the technology arm of the business. I think both have some contributions in businesses and organizations dropping the ball, as you said. On the one side, there is sometimes a blind faith and a belief that somehow the technology will happen, whatever the happen may mean. And therefore, there is this blind reliance upon the technology arm producing innovation and delivering on the promise of the innovation. Likewise, on the technology side, there is oftentimes this belief that technology can magically do things. Whether it solves a real world problem or not becomes a second order thought. The capability of the technology takes the front seat as opposed to the promise of the value delivered by the application appropriately of the technology. When you have these two different dissonances at the same table at the same time, people could often leave saying, here is what can be done, as opposed to here is what should be done and will be done.
I write a good deal about big data and advanced analytics, and we hear this all the time, that companies are racing after big data projects without figuring out, A, are they doing conventional data properly, and B, what are they really hoping to accomplish in this hoarding of the data stream. What have you seen as examples of companies running after the newest hula hoop in your experience in business?
Pardon me. Businesses constantly see bright, shiny new objects. And the temptation is always there to run towards the latest new shiny object just to see whether there is a spot of gold or whether it's fool's gold. Speaking of my own experiences in this regard, including ICANN now, we've come up with, or we've come to believe in, a four-stage mantra. I drive my team, I drive my business partners to also think along the same lines. Whether it's big data or is it social or whatever may be the new letter of the day or word of the day, acronym of the day. We start out with the first big question, which is there a prize to win at all from a business viewpoint? If the answer is yes, there is a prize. The second is, do we have the right to win the prize? It may be that there is a prize, but we may be like the Jamaican tobogganing. We don't have the right to win, so we may have the right to participate and enjoy the ride, but we certainly don't have the right to win. Then the third question is, do we have a path to win? And that includes things like resources, commitment, a shared vision. And finally, the fourth question, which is probably the most important, and that is there the management bandwidth for this new thing here now, amongst all the other things that we're also trying to get accomplished? If we're able to answer yes to all four, then we say, yeah, it's a project. Let's go figure out how to make this project come alive now. And I find that this has been helpful, useful, and it seems to work for us.
So you've locked this down into a methodology at ICANN, for example?
That's correct. It's more than a methodology, it's a philosophy. We've locked down on the philosophy.
Very good. I've been monopolizing the conversation. I do want to kick it over to my colleague, Amy. Do you have a few questions for Ashwin?
Yes. Hi, Ashwin. Can you tell us about ICANN's major projects or priorities for 2016?
ICANN is unlike a for-profit revenue-driven organization. We are a global public responsibility organization chartered with one of the most interesting responsibilities in the technology world. We are in the business of making available the domain name service on a global basis. We introduce new top-level domain names. We are responsible for allocating IP addresses on a global basis. And Alice talked about the fact that we make the internet behave as a singular instrument on a global basis. We do that by delegating what are known as protocol parameters into the root zone of the internet so that your experience with a given technology is the same regardless of where you are. So 3G is a 3G, a Wi-Fi is a Wi-Fi, and so on and so forth. Now, given that most of our work, about 3/4 of the work that my team and I do, is for the benefit of the global public that engages with us by self-organizing in a bottom-up fashion in the multi-stakeholder community. The multi-stakeholder community presents itself to us by self-organizing into smaller groupings that are like-minded regardless of geography. So for instance, there is a group of people that is very much interested in the security and stability of the root zone of the internet. So the security folks self-organize into a smaller grouping. Likewise, the stability folk self-organize into a small grouping that work intimately with the root zone, and so on and so forth. One of the most important projects that we're currently working on is how to make their life significantly easier by making available collaboration tools. When I say their lives, it could be the government advisory grouping that self-organizes across the 180 plus countries that participate in the ICANN ecosystem. They're a like-minded group of people coming from 180 different countries working for their specific government. So how can they collaborate amongst themselves so that the advice that they give us is harmonized and synthesized so that it reflects the voice of the governments of the world together? So that's an example of a project that we're working on as we speak.
It sounds, and I'm just going to jump in here, it sounds like an awfully politically sensitive role that you play. You mentioned 180 countries, all of whom may have similar but not necessarily identical views about the use of the internet per se for their citizens and so forth. And I'm just curious, this is an issue that some global CIOs and CEOs would deal with when you're dealing with different countries, but do you have any quick rules of the road for dealing with so many different possibly competing interests across the globe?
Certainly, the obvious challenges are self-evident. Languages, cultures, belief systems, values, all of those could be different. We all know that. As we deal with international participants on any forum, we are exposed to the fact that not everybody is looking at the same thing in the same fashion. It's interesting that as parents, we teach our children this. As children, we are taught this by our own parents, that everything is not the same. It all depends on the point of view that you look at it from. And yet, when we get to the professional workplace, it becomes more difficult for people to understand that and use it as they make their progress forward. But beyond the obvious, we get into the more subtle. And that is, how do you practically take the differences and yet come up with something that is more practicable? To do that, we have some techniques. One of the techniques that we use is to ask, for instance, the group that we're currently dealing with, whatever the grouping may be, to come up with a task force that is self-selected by them to reflect upon and synthesize a voice that says, here is what we now need, as opposed to us trying to interpret the cacophony that we may be discerning. We ask them to synthesize the differences in voices and present a singular voice, saying that at the end of the day, this is probably what we need. It's not definitive, but it leads us in the right direction. We take it upon ourselves then to rapidly iterate on that so that they can get closer to what they actually need. Given the differences from which they start, it may be difficult for us to ask them to define precisely what they need, but it's easy for them to get us to a zone that may be in the need zone, and for us to iterate upon that need zone and then say, is this what you need, and get closer and closer to a solution.
Excellent. I'm sure we could talk for an hour just about the tools and techniques you're using to find consensus and to move the needle forward for the internet, which is so vital for all of us. But we've run out of time, so I'd like to thank you, Ashwin, for joining us, and I'd like to thank everyone for watching ICCG's Close-Up, sponsored by Round World Solutions. To see more of our interviews, join the discussion, or participate yourself as a panelist, please visit our website at ICCGUSA.com. Thanks for watching.
Alice, Amy, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Amy Hara, Vice President of Solutions and Delivery for Round World Solutions, the experts in integrated governance with project execution with a focus on big data solutions. Our unique 360-degree view enables us to give CXOs a comprehensive view of where they are today, where they would like to be, and delivers a powerful framework to encompass change management structures to ensure they accomplish their goals. ICCG Close-Up is an interview panel where Fortune 1000 CXOs share their views on big data, governance, and their most pressing issues. At the conclusion of the interviews, we'll be compiling the results into an industry and issue-specific report to share with all of the interviewees, emphasizing common interests and future plans associated with those interests across industries. The benefits to our participating CXOs are the creation of a virtual CXO interactive knowledge base, highly scaled shared resources, and the ability to learn from each other without having to reinvent the wheel. Thank you for watching ICCG's Close-Up, sponsored by Round World Solutions. For more information about our CXO interview panel or to join the conversation, please visit us at www.roundworldsolutions.com. Thank you.